My mother insisted that I call off my wedding in order to spare the feelings of my golden sister, so I disinvited them, and the manner in which I turned the tables left everyone in utter disbelief. My name is Emily, and I am 30 years old. My fiancé, Ryan, who is 31 years old and a man, proposed to me in March of last year. For the past 6 years, we have been companions. He is not just my boyfriend but also my best friend, and he is without a doubt the most supportive person I know. My mother and my half-sister, Cassie, who is 24 years old and a female, decided to make my engagement and wedding their personal battleground as soon as I broke the news that he had proposed to me. It seemed as though everything had fallen into place when he got down on one knee. When I was 5 years old, my mother wed my stepfather, Tom. We have always been more like acquaintances who tolerate each other than true sisters, despite the fact that Cassie is their daughter and we grew up together. When it comes to me, Cassie has always exhibited a peculiarly competitive streak. This is really something to consider. It all began when we were young children. In the event that I had a higher grade or if one of my relatives complimented me, she would not be happy about it. As each of us grew older, the stakes never failed to increase. During the time that I was attending college, she went through a series of nasty relationships, and now that I am engaged, she is acting as if my happiness is some kind of personal vengeance against her. In any case, Ryan made his proposal in March of last year, over a peaceful weekend spent at home, and we agreed to get married in January. What we wanted was a ceremony that was small and intimate, with perhaps 70 guests in attendance. The way it felt to us was ideal. To begin planning, I was very delighted, and I believed that my family would be just as excited as I was. I was completely mistaken. As soon as I called my mother to give her the news, her initial reaction was not one of delight. Rather, it was one of concern that Cassie would not be pleased with this. At first, I thought she was joking, but it turned out that she wasn't. I laughed it to myself. It would appear that Cassie's feelings were going to be wounded whenever I proposed to her. How come? Because she was a single person who was attempting to sort out her life. When I initially heard it, I completely disregarded it, believing that it was just a strange remark. However, after a few weeks had passed, Cassie made the announcement that she was going to marry a man whom she had been dating for a period of 3 months. Now, I make an effort to refrain from passing judgment on the decisions that other people make, but this seemed strange. Despite the fact that Cassie has always been impulsive, she got married to a guy that none of us knew after only 3 months of dating him. I couldn't get a good feeling about it. My mouth, however, remained silent. I reasoned that it was her life and her choice, and that it was none of my business. Moving forward in time to the month of July, Cassie's whirlwind marriage exploded just as quickly as it had begun. To add insult to injury, her husband Jake cheated on her with her best friend not even 2 months after they had tied the knot. She submitted a petition for divorce. My heart went out to her since the whole scenario was so chaotic and upsetting, and I felt terrible for her. I attempted to be sympathetic, but each time I reached out to provide assistance, I was met with a rude rejection. I couldn't figure out why she was upset with me, but I had the impression that she was. Then it dawned on me. She did not want my assistance in any way. It was her intention to place blame on me. According to the information that I have gathered, Cassie believes that I was the cause of her hasty marriage. She believes that my announcement of my engagement was some kind of competition that she needed to triumph over. And when her marriage ended, I suppose she came to the conclusion that it was simpler to harbor resentment toward me than it was to accept responsibility for the choices she had made. Conditions had become tight by the time autumn arrived on the scene. Although Cassie and I hadn't actually communicated since her divorce, my mother was behaving in an odd manner. Whenever I brought up the topic of wedding preparation, she would either respond with silence or change the subject. It seemed as though she was trying to evade the subject, but I didn't press the issue. It was my assumption that she was simply unwilling to discuss weddings because of the circumstances surrounding Cassie. The indications should have been obvious to me. As far as I am concerned, there is nothing that can adequately prepare you for the sheer insanity of being guilt-tripped about your own wedding. Not because I was afraid that my own family would turn the wedding planning process into some kind of weird competition, but rather because I believed it would be stressful due of the logistics or the budget. We are, nevertheless, here. Now that we are in the middle of November, Ryan and I have just finished sending out our wedding invites. After what seemed like an eternity, I finally had the sensation that everything was coming together. Those feelings of joy did not continue for very long because I received the call 2 days later. This was my mother. When I reflect back on it, I recall thinking that it was a little unusual because she doesn't call me very often. She's more of a person who texts me once a month. Nevertheless, I responded, thinking that she would be interested in discussing the wedding. Perhaps I ought to have known better. It was a rather innocuous beginning to the conversation. She inquired about my well-being and how Ryan was doing, and then she casually entered the conversation by asking, "So, you're really going through with the wedding?" For a moment, I was under the impression that she was merely verifying the date or something. Indeed, there is no need to worry about anything. Almost everything has been paid for, including the location, the caterer, and the flowers. This is when she let out a sigh. It was not a typical sigh. Rather, it was a loud, overdone, and theatrical sigh that almost insinuated that you were about to wreck the life of another person. As she spoke, she dragged out the phrase as if she were about to impart some profound advice that would alter the course of her life. In light of what I've been thinking about Cassie, I believe that you ought to rethink your decision. In a state of genuine confusion, I paused. Give what some thought. As if she were getting ready to give a speech, she hesitated for a moment. To be honest, Emily, I do not believe that now is the right time for a wedding. The fact that Cassie is having such a large party so soon after everything that she has been through is causing her to feel even more heartbroken than she did before the divorce. A tiny bit of insensitivity comes across. In all honesty, I was under the impression that I had misunderstood her. You mean to tell me that you think I should call off my wedding to Cassie? In any case, she responded with a yes, as if it were the most sensible request in the entire world. In light of everything that she has been through, the fact that you are getting married so soon after her divorce is going to be very painful for her. I was completely taken aback. To be honest, I had no idea how to react to that. It's been about a year since we started making plans for this wedding, Mom. Deposits have been paid, and the venue has been reserved. How are you able to request that I simply cancel it? At no point did she miss a beat. You always have the option of doing something modest, like as a church ceremony, with only your immediate family members present. The wedding will still take place, but it won't be as much of a hassle as it would otherwise be. You wouldn't be showing it off to anyone. Is it being flaunted? I was having a hard time believing what I was hearing. Don't worry, Mom. This isn't about showing off anything. Celebrating my relationship with Ryan is the purpose of this event. For the past 6 years, we have been companions. Now is the day for us. She sighed once more, this time with a stronger tone. In my opinion, if you truly cared about your sister, you would do something like this for her. The fact that she is going to be attending a large wedding is going to make things much more difficult for her. At this time, I was irate, but I made an effort to maintain my composure. Although I understand that Cassie is going through a difficult time, this is not related to her in any way, shape, or form. Both Ryan and I have been working on this for a very long time. It would be unreasonable to expect us to alter anything because of the decisions she has made. She was not pleased with that. Emily, what are her options? The fact that her husband cheated on her was not something she desired. She made no conscious decision to allow her life to disintegrate. While that is true, she did make the decision to marry a man whom she had only known for 3 months. It would have been inappropriate to say that. My mother completely lost her cool and accused me of being nasty and self-centered, as well as of not comprehending what Cassie has been through in her life. To top it all off, she included a timeless quote, "I thought I had raised you better than this." After that moment, I was no longer able to deal with it. My mother, I am not going to call off my wedding. This concludes the matter. When I hung up, I was trembling with rage. Instantaneously, I dialed Ryan's number and informed him of everything. As perplexed as I was, he was also perplexed. According to him, who would ask their own daughter to throw off her wedding because of the divorce of another person? As much as I wish I could say that was the conclusion of the matter, the truth is that it was not. Mother increased the intensity of her campaign to coerce me into either canceling or reducing the size of the wedding throughout the course of the subsequent few weeks. She would contact me every few days, usually with some variant of the same argument, which was that Cassie's heart was crushed, that you were being insensitive, and that a little wedding would mean a great deal to every member of the family. She even made an attempt to enlist Ryan in the activity at one point. She gave him a direct call and told him, "Ryan, You are such a thoughtful person. I am confident that you will comprehend the significance of this matter for Cassie. It was a fortunate turn of events that he instantly put an end to it, informing her that we would continue with our initial intentions. On the other hand, Cassie became involved. She began sending me texts in which she made passive-aggressive comments such as, "It must be nice to have everything go perfectly for you, and don't you think it's a little too soon for a big celebration?" She went so far as to bring up the timing of the wedding, stating that January seems like such an odd month for a wedding. "Are you certain that you did not choose it with the intention of rubbing it in my face or in her face?" I couldn't believe the disrespectful behavior. Initially, I attempted to ignore her, but she continued to escalate the situation. She started phoning me and leaving these lengthy voicemails filled with sorrow and a sense of remorse about how difficult it was for her to even consider weddings and how my insensitivity was making the process of her healing so much more difficult. My mother and Cassie appeared to be dependent on one another, which was the most frustrating aspect. Cassie would text me the next day, saying, "Mom is so upset about how you're handling this." Mom would call and say something along the lines of, "Cassie was crying all night thinking about your wedding." Cassie would then add that she was crying all night long. It wore me out completely. I had reached the point where I broke. The extent to which they were willing to go in order to make my wedding about them was beyond my comprehension. I was aware that I needed to make a decision, but I was not yet certain how to proceed. It was at this very moment that I gained an understanding of how harmful their behavior was. This was not about Cassie's sentiments or the divorce she had gone through. The issue was one of control. Because they wanted me to put my life on hold in order to satisfy their concerns, I decided that I would no longer allow them to determine how happy I would be. The situation had officially gotten out of hand by the time December rolled around. Cassie was no longer willing to wallow in her own company or send me texts that were part of a passive-aggressive behavior. To tell you the truth, I was getting whiplash trying to keep up with all of her shenanigans. She was now on a mission to drag my name through the mud with everybody who would listen to her. It began on a modest scale. My cousin Megan, who is a blessing for being the family informant, informed me that Cassie had been ringing up relatives to warn them about me. I was surprised to hear this information. As far as she was concerned, I was trying to embarrass her by proclaiming my wedding in front of her. She went so far as to assert that I had purposefully selected January, knowing that it would be too soon after her divorce for her to be able to emotionally deal with its implications. My mind was unable to comprehend the reasoning behind it. Even before she got married, let alone divorced, my engagement had already been planned out for several months. During the time that I was sending out save-the-dates, I was supposed to have the ability to predict that her life would completely fall apart. On the other hand, when someone is intent on playing the victim, logic does not appear to serve much of a purpose. Her tales became more dramatic with each subsequent telling of them. Megan informed me that Cassie was making statements such as, "Emily inevitably believes that she is superior to me. The only reason she is rubbing her lovely little existence in my face is because she is aware that I am having a hard time." What is the most terrible aspect? There were members of her family who truly believed what she was saying. It goes without saying that my mother was her most ardent supporter. She started calling me virtually every day to inquire as to whether or not I had changed my mind about canceling or reducing the size of the wedding. She would argue that Cassie is still really delicate. After seeing your wedding invites, she cried for the entirety of the night. In all honesty, you do not require a major event. Couldn't you just do something that's easy to accomplish? In every single instance, I maintained my hard stance, but it was taxing. It was during a Christmas gathering with the family that the genuine breaking point occurred. After all of the stress that was associated with the wedding, I felt that going to a dinner at my aunt's house would be a wonderful opportunity to relax and unwind. Ryan and I had been invited to attend. Naturally, Cassie and my mother were also present, which ought to have provided me with the initial warning sign. Everything was tight from the very beginning. Cassie hardly recognized me, but whenever I brought up the wedding, she would either huff or roll her eyes instead of smiling directly. While I was having a conversation with my aunt about flowers, Cassie quietly mumbled, "It must be nice to waste so much money on a party when some people can barely pick up the pieces of their lives." I was in the middle of my conversation with my aunt. I chose to ignore her, but it was clear that she was looking for a response. After some time, the topic of discussion switched, and I began to feel a little more at ease. The situation remained like way until Cassie abruptly broke down in tears in the center of the living room. While she was crying her eyes out, shaking her head, and repeating, "I can't believe how cruel people can be," she was quite emotional. Nobody moved at all. In an effort to console her, my aunt hurried over and inquired about the situation. It was at that moment that Cassie began her theatrical performance. Through her emotions, she expressed that it was simply very difficult. Despite the fact that I have gone through a lot this year, I am now forced to sit here and listen to Em talk about her ideal wedding as if nothing else is important. My mother instantly chimed in, patting Cassie's back as if she were the victim of some terrible injustice. She is aware of how much anguish I am experiencing, but she does not care about it. Yes, Emily, she is correct. Make an effort to show greater consideration. She has been going through a lot of difficulty because of this. That was the moment when I completely lost it. I had been keeping my mouth shut for several weeks, but I finally became unable to take it any longer. As I attempted to maintain my composure, I stated that this wedding had nothing to do with Cassie. In the event that she is offended, Ryan and I have been planning this for the past year. Not at all my fault is that. Instead of blaming me for her difficulties, perhaps she ought to take some responsibility for the fact that she forced herself into a marriage that was not a good fit. It was completely silence in the room. Cassie's emotions changed into wrath almost quickly once she saw my aunt, who appeared to be trying to hide behind the couch. She yelled at him, "How dare you? Your life is falling apart, and you have no idea what it's like to go through that. You've been given everything you could possibly want, including your scholarship, your partner, and your ideal little existence life. Nothing has ever required you to put up a fight for it." I started to stand up, trembling with rage. "Yes, you are correct, Cassie. As a result of the fact that I do not make hasty choices just for the purpose of competing with others, I am unable to imagine what it would be like for my life to completely disintegrate. There is a possibility that you would not be in this predicament if you spent less time harboring resentment and more time concentrating on improving yourself." At that moment, Ryan reached out and grasped my hand, adding, "We're going to leave." Neither of us argued. The exchange kept playing over and over in my thoughts as I drove home, and I found myself questioning whether or not I had been sufficiently harsh. However, the more I reflected about the situation, the more I came to the realization that I had every right to advocate for myself. After weeks of being pushed by Cassie, I finally decided that I would no longer allow her to turn my wedding into her own personal pity party. However, the thing that stayed with me the most was the fact that Mom had immediately come to Cassie's rescue without any hesitation. Throughout the entire circumstance, she did not make any attempt to comprehend my perspective or even acknowledge the amount of stress that I was experiencing. In my opinion, it seemed as though she had made her selection, and it was not me. My mother sent me a text message the following day, saying that you owe your sister an apology for what you said the previous evening. You were unduly rude to her, despite the fact that she has gone through a lot. I failed to provide a response. This was the last time I would apologize for anything that was not my fault. It was quite evident that Cassie was not going to back down at this point, and it was also clear that Mom was not going to stop assisting her. I had no idea what their next move would be, but I was aware that I needed to begin making preparations for the worst possible outcome. Update 1 taunted hello once more. I want to express my gratitude for the comments and support you provided on my last article. Thank you very much for your guidance. As a result of the catastrophe that occurred during the family dinner, I was aware that I needed to establish a clear boundary. Not only were Cassie and my mother acting in an inappropriate manner, but they were also making an effort to negatively impact my happiness. The fact that I chose to ignore it was obviously not working, and any attempt I made to defend myself appeared to only serve to feed their drama. After some reflection, I came to the conclusion that the best way to proceed was to completely exclude them from the wedding. The decision that was made was not simple, but it was essential. 2 days after the dinner, Ryan and I sat down together and went over everything that had happened. I uttered those words with a lump in my throat. I believe it is necessary for me to uninvite them. By being present, they are only going to make the situation much more difficult. Instantaneously, Ryan gave a nod. The same notion has been going through my head. It's a bummer, but today is your day, our day, and you have every right to have pleasure in it without being concerned about what they will do next. Despite the fact that hearing his support made me feel a little better, the idea of truly excluding my mother and sister from my wedding was quite intimidating. It wasn't just about them. It was also about the potential impact that it could have on the rest of the family. Despite this, I was aware that I must not allow their dangerous behavior to eclipse everything that Ryan and I had labored so diligently to arrange. As a result, I composed an email. I kept it brief and focused on the data. I said that it had become abundantly evident that they were not in favor of my wedding with the activities that they had taken over the past few months, which included spreading stories, making me feel guilty, and generating more drama than was required. I informed them that their actions had resulted in a great amount of stress for me, and I had made the decision to invite them back for my own peace of mind. Immediately after I pushed the submit button, I had the sensation that a burden had been removed from my shoulders. Within a matter of hours, the responses began to gradually come in. The first person to respond was my mother, and let me tell you, it was a massive response. She referred to me as a heartless person and blamed me of causing the family to become estranged. Her email was full of dramatic statements such as, "I never thought my own daughter would betray me like this," and "You've chosen a man over your own blood." Her email was replete with phrases like these. In addition to that, she made a comment about how my father would be dissatisfied with me if he were still living. Instances of the classic guilt trips. I failed to provide a response. Finally, Cassie arrived. Her reaction was precisely what I had anticipated. It was full of rage and self-pity against herself. She said that I was punishing her for being honest about her feelings and accused me of being jealous of her. I am still unsure of what it is that I am supposed to be jealous of. At the end of her email, she said, "You will come to regret this decision when you realize that you have ruined this family." I, too, did not respond to her inquiries. It was not the end of the repercussions just yet. Over the course of the subsequent few days, I began to get phone calls and text messages from other members of my family, the majority of whom were the ones whom Mom and Cassie had already poisoned against me. When I phoned my uncle, he told me that I was acting immature and that I should simply let it go for the purpose of maintaining unity within the family. A voicemail was left by a cousin with whom I had a limited amount of communication, and it said, "I can't believe you would do something like this to your own mother." At first, I was feeling completely overpowered by the backlash, but then something quite remarkable took place. When it came to me, the individuals who truly mattered eventually started showing up. While I was on the phone, my Aunt Laura, who is my father's sister, told me that she was proud of me for sticking up for myself. According to her, "You have tolerated their stupidity for a sufficient amount of time. Once again, it is about time that you put your foot down." There was a lengthy text message that was given to me by my cousin Megan, who had been keeping me informed on Cassie's shenanigans. She said, "Don't let them get to you. You have the support of everyone who knows you on a deeper level." I received a phone call from my godmother, who is one of the most straightforward individuals I know, to let me know that I was acting in the appropriate manner. She stated that the occasion of your wedding ought to be about love and celebration, rather than drama and resentment. Their encouragement was like detonating a bomb in my own being. I felt like I wasn't the only one fighting this battle for the first time in what seemed like weeks. However, it was obvious that Mom and Cassie were not going to let it go without a fight. I received a second phone call from Megan around 1 week after I had written the email. Her tone conveyed a mixture of amusement and irritation as she stated, "You are not going to believe this. Because you feel frightened by her, Cassie is telling people that you invited her without her permission." I was unable to contain my laughter. In what specific way is one threatened? Megan stated that it appears that she has been expressing concern that you are concerned that Ryan has feelings for her. You are attempting to get rid of her in order to save face because she claims that he has been flirting with her and you discovered this information. Due to the fact that it was so absurd, I was completely at a loss for words. Whatever she was saying, we were both aware that there was absolutely no truth to it. Nevertheless, the fact that she was attempting to entangle Ryan in her web of falsehoods was extremely frustrating. I told her that it was an extreme measure. That is not going to be believed by anyone. According to Megan, the vast majority of individuals do not. You know how she is, however, and she is going to continue to spin the narrative until she finds someone who is naive enough to accept her side. I came to the conclusion that I would not exert any further effort in worrying about Cassie's delusions. At this time, I was concentrating on preserving my tranquility and making certain that the day of my wedding went off without a hitch. In light of this, Ryan and I decided to sit down together in order to go over the guest list and finalize all of the specifics. In the event that Cassie or Mom attempted to pull anything, We made contact with the venue to ensure that they had our backs from the beginning. We also hired a number of security guards to keep things under control, which is something that I never imagined I would have to do for my own wedding, but here we were. In the midst of everything, Ryan was my rock. In order to protect our pleasure, he reminded me that this was our day, and that we did not owe anyone an explanation for making this decision. Around the time that the new year arrived, I had the impression that I was finally recovering control of my life. Both Cassie and Mom could spin their stories as much as they wanted, but they were not going to ruin this experience for me. Shoo, the most recent update is 2. I am aware that it has not been very long since I last updated you, but the event that took place is something that I felt it was imperative to inform you about with immediate effect. It's time to buckle up because this one takes the cake when it comes to Cassie's shenanigans, which you thought couldn't possibly be much worse. When the month of January arrived, I had the impression that I had witnessed every conceivable manifestation of her jealousy, pettiness, and plain manipulative behavior. However, what she attempted to do next left me completely stunned and, to tell you the truth, a little disgusted. All of this began with a strange text message that Ryan received one evening. We had finally exhausted ourselves after a long and stressful day of arranging the details of the wedding, and we were finally able to relax on the couch when his phone rang. The moment he took a quick look at it, I observed that his face went from being calm to tight very instantly. "What exactly is it?" I inquired, already preparing myself for a dramatic situation. As he showed me the message, he introduced it to me as Cassie. The message that was sent to Ryan said, "Hey, I really need someone to talk to. Despite the fact that you probably think I'm a bad person right now, I'm going through a lot of difficulties, and I feel like you're the only person who understands what I'm going through. Are we able to get together?" When I first heard it, I was at a loss for words. I mean, on the surface, it appeared to be really harmless. Nevertheless, knowing Cassie and being aware of the amount of effort she had been putting forth to cause difficulties, I got a nasty feeling about it. Considering that Ryan did not immediately respond, it is likely that he was also aware of it. However, he turned his attention to me and stated, "I do not like this. It doesn't feel quite right." I explained that it is not correct. You have never even been liked by her. What might possibly have caused her to suddenly want to discuss her emotions with you? It was decided that it would be better to ignore her, but the messages continued to come in. Over the course of the subsequent several days, she sent Ryan a series of texts that became increasingly urgent. She expressed her feelings of isolation, how she had no one else to turn to, and how much she valued his generosity during such a trying time. She also mentioned how she had no one else to turn to. I want to bring to your attention the fact that Ryan had never communicated with Cassie in any way that was meaningful. There was no question that he had always been courteous to her, but by any sense of the imagination, they were not particularly close. Therefore, this unexpected display of thankfulness appeared to be premeditated. Ryan was just as frightened as I was, but we both came to the conclusion that it would be best to wait and try to figure out what her ultimate goal was before we responded. Indeed, it did not take long for her genuine objectives to become apparent to those who were paying attention. Another letter arrived later, and this one was so apparent that it caused my blood to boil. Ryan received it. "I have been thinking a lot about you recently," as Cassie said in her letter. "It's not right, yet I can't help myself from doing it. I have the impression that Emily is not aware of the connection that there is between us. When it comes to these emotions, I am at a loss on what to do." Not only was I infuriated with her for being so arrogant, but I was also infuriated with the manner in which she had treated everything. Despite the fact that she was aware that we were going to get married in a few days, she continued to try to put herself in the way of our wedding by employing some low-cost strategies. Ryan, may God bless him, went ahead and showed me the message right away and asked me, "How would you like to handle this situation?" I inhaled deeply and then said, "Let's not give her the satisfaction of a direct response." I then took a deep breath. The first thing you should do is take screenshots of everything before you block her number. We preserved the screenshots as receipts in case she decided to try weaving some wild narrative at a later time. He did precisely that, and we kept them. The next morning, I made the decision that I would not allow this to go unnoticed. Despite the fact that I did not immediately react to her since there was no purpose in dealing with someone who was so thirsty for attention, I did write an email to my mother and a few other members of my immediate family, in which I detailed the proceedings that had taken place. By attaching the screenshots and emphasizing that this was the evidence that I was correct in removing Cassie from the wedding invitation list, I kept the communication clean and unambiguous. I have written that this practice is both harmful and manipulative. I have done everything in my power to maintain peace, but this goes beyond what is acceptable, and I hope that you now get the reason why I did not include her. There were a variety of reactions. As was to be expected, my mother offered her support to Cassie. She stated that I must have misread her intentions and that I was exaggerating the situation. She accused me of being overly dramatic. In addition to that, she had the audacity to insinuate that Ryan might have misinterpreted the texts. According to what Mom wrote, I find it hard to believe that you would accuse your own sister of something so heinous. Despite the fact that Cassie is going through a difficult period, you are making it all about yourself. I rolled my eyes so fiercely that I came dangerously close to hitting something. Other members of the family were considerably more supportive than I was at this stage, which was not surprising to me at all. As soon as I finished reading the email, my cousin Megan, who had been on my side from the beginning, gave me a call. "Is this even possible?" It was said by her. "While I was aware that Cassie was a piece of work, this is on a whole new level. You should be commended for interrupting her." In the same way, my Aunt Laura, who is my father's sister, was furious. "She told me that you are completely correct in deciding to exclude her from the wedding. The fact that she has repeatedly demonstrated that she does not respect you is only strengthened by this new evidence. Their assistance meant everything to me, but I would be lying if I said that it totally removed the pain that I was experiencing. The stunt that Cassie pulled was not only disrespectful, but it was also embarrassing. There was a feeling that she was attempting to undermine all that Ryan and I had made together, and I was unable to comprehend the reason for this. Jealousy was the cause. To spit. Do you have a perverted desire for attention? Perhaps all of the aforementioned possibilities. No matter what her motivations were, I was certain of one thing: she was not going to emerge victorious. Despite the fact that there were only a few days left until the wedding, I made a commitment to myself that I would not allow Cassie or my mother to destroy this deal for me. For the big day, I also took sure to increase the number of security measures that I had in place. After making contact with the venue, I informed them of the issue and informed them that Cassie and Mom were not invited to attend the event in any way, shape, or form. In the event that they did decide to show up regardless, I went so far as to employ an additional security guard. Despite the fact that it seemed a touch harsh, I wasn't going to take any chances after everything they had pulled. I now have the feeling that I am better equipped than I have ever been to deal with whatever rubbish that they may try to throw my way. The sleazy games that Cassie played on me may have shook me, but they did not shatter me. On the contrary, they merely served to strengthen my resolve to maintain my unwavering stance and safeguard my tranquility. Again, it's me, Hunt, with an update. Let's hope that this is the last time you hear about the drama that transpired in my family. In the days leading up to my wedding, I was under the impression that I had adequately prepared myself for every conceivable circumstance. On the other hand, there is nothing that can adequately prepare you for the moment when members of your own family attempt to ruin the most joyous day of your life. On the morning of the wedding, everything got off to a wonderful start. All of the flowers and decorations that we had chosen over the course of the previous year made the venue appear to be a wonderful place. During the time that we were getting ready for the wedding, my bridesmaids kept me laughing and calm, and the weather was ideal for the proceedings. After I had finished getting dressed, I went outside to meet Ryan in the garden. We had previously decided that we would conduct a first look of the wedding before the ceremony. At that moment, when I saw him standing there, looking as bit as nervous and eager as I was, all of the tension and drama that I had been experiencing vanished. There was nothing else that mattered to me because this was the moment I had been waiting for. Or so I had believed. When my maid of honor, Amanda, came running in, I was back in the bridal suite, doing some last-minute touch-ups. The ceremony was scheduled to begin 30 minutes before it was scheduled to begin. She appeared to be under a lot of stress, which instantly triggered my alarm bells. "This is something that you are not going to believe," she said. "Both your mother and Cassie are present." The pit of my stomach sank. What is it? How is it? I was under the impression that security was taking care of it. Amanda stated that they are attempting to gain entry. Even though they were stopped by security at the gate, they are making a significant disturbance. Obviously, that is the case. As I attempted to regain my composure, I drew a breath in deeply. Which words are they uttering? The fact that Amanda hesitated was a clear indication that it was not a good idea. While your mother is crying, she is expressing that all she wants is to witness her daughter being married. The Cassies. It seems that she is yelling at you, telling you that you are a terrible person and that you do not deserve to be here today. The temperature of my blood began to rise. They had to try to destroy the actual day of the wedding as well, because it wasn't enough for them to make the months leading up to the wedding a living hell. To what end do you want me to act? Asking was Amanda. Nothing, I asserted in a firm. It should be handled by security. The only thing that will happen is that they will get what they want if we go out there. After giving a little nod, Amanda departed to check in with the soldiers. In the meantime, I sat down and made an effort to gather my thoughts. It took everything I had to keep from going out there and giving my mother and Cassie a piece of my mind when I could hear them yelling and arguing with security. I could hear them faintly in the distance. Amanda arrived back a few minutes later with an update on the situation. It is not possible for them to leave. The manager of the venue offered to call the police, but they are concerned that doing so may cause an even more significant disturbance. Oh, I moaned. It was precisely for this reason that I had not invited them in the first place. Would you like me to inform Ryan about it? Asking was Amanda. I gave a slight shake of my head. This stress is not something that he needs at this moment. Take precautions to ensure that they do not approach the ceremony in any way. Thank goodness, security was on top of the situation. They were successful in blocking my mother and Cassie from leaving the parking lot, and eventually, the staff at the venue contacted a ride service to pick them up and drive them away. It was not until Cassie yelled out in a loud enough voice for everyone in the vicinity to hear that, "Emily, you are going to come to regret your decision. You are going to come to regret excluding your own family." After they had left, I allowed myself to take another deep breath and told myself to let go of the situation. They were no longer visible to me, and I was not going to allow them to deprive me of my happiness. I had a dream that the ceremony would be everything I had hoped for and more. I felt an incredible sensation of love and thankfulness as I stood there with Ryan, surrounded by our closest friends and family members, or at the very least, those who were supportive of us. This was the determining factor. It was just this moment with the individuals who genuinely cared about us, and not the drama or the resentment that we were experiencing. During the cocktail hour that followed the ceremony, I began to come across snippets of information regarding the events that had transpired between my mother and Cassie. It would appear that they had been yelling allegations at the security officers, claiming that Ryan had brainwashed me and that the family would never forgive me for barring them from the event. A couple of the attendees even managed to overhear them from the parking lot, which was quite awkward. However, the most of the guests simply shrugged their eyes and ignored my father's situation. I was at dinner when my sister Aunt Laura approached me and told me, "I am so proud of you for standing your ground." They exposed their actual nature today, and anyone who is paying attention can now see it. It was a sentiment that was shared by many others throughout the night. To let me know that they were on my side, my cousins, friends, and even some of my mother's old friends and acquaintances pulled me aside. One may say that it was a collective reckoning. People had now come to the realization that my mother and Cassie had been poisonous, and they were not going to tolerate it. A haze of laughter, dancing, and unadulterated happiness characterized the remainder of the evening. My maid of honor gave a hilarious and heartfelt toast, and my dad's best friend, who is practically an uncle to me, brought the house down with a story about how he once caught Ryan trying to sneak out of a family barbecue with a plate of ribs. Ryan and I shared our first dance under twinkling lights, and my maid of honor was our maid of honor. When the night came to a conclusion, I felt lighter than I had in months for the first time. Neither Cassie nor my mother had emerged victorious. Their attempts to disrupt the day had only served to showcase the amount of love and support that Ryan and I received from the people who were truly important to us throughout the day. My mother had left me a dozen missed calls and texts by the time I returned to the hotel that evening. I checked my phone and discovered that I had missed all of them. Instead of reading them, I chose not to. It was time for me to stop allowing her or Cassie to occupy a place in my lifestyle. One of the most difficult choices I've ever had to make was to entirely cut them out of my life, but as I stood there with Ryan, surrounded by people who actually cared about us, I realized that it was the right one. I want to express my gratitude once more for sharing your views with me throughout this chaos. Honestly, I am grateful for it much. If there is any upheaval following the wedding, I will keep you updated. Let's keep our fingers crossed. It's over with me, L. First date, 4 cents. I'm going to tell you something that you won't believe happened around a week after the wedding takes place. A call came in from my cousin Megan, who, as is her custom, was the first to convey the gossip that circulated within the family. She said, "You are not going to believe what just occurred," and she sounded much more delighted than frightened about what had just occurred. I did a sigh. To what end? Megan mentioned that Cassie and your mother had a significant argument. Like a conflict on an epic level. To add insult to injury, your mother has expelled her from the house. When I was about to drop my phone. Hold on, what is it? So, what took place? Megan was more than willing to update me on the situation. It would appear that Cassie had been sulking about my mother's house after the wedding, ruminating on the fact that her grand plot to spoil my day had been unsuccessful. Megan stated that she was blaming everyone, including myself, Ryan, the security guards, and even a random cousin who, according to her, did not show sufficient effort to prevent me from doing what I was doing. It was when she disobeyed my mother that the true explosion took place. Cassandra accused her of not doing enough to prevent the wedding from taking place. She started yelling about how it was my mother's responsibility that I had gone through with it, and that she ought to have been more strong in her efforts to convince me to make the decision to cancel. Cassie's mother, who has always been a sweetheart to her daughter regardless of how absurd she has been, has finally reached her breaking point. The mother yelled back at Cassie, telling her that she was sick of the drama and that she was an adult who needed to take responsibility for her own life. Megan added that she was annoyed by the drama. In that regard, Cassie did not fare well. It would appear that she went on a full-blown rant, with the accusation that her mother had failed her as a parent and had chosen me over her. Mom finally gave up and instructed her to pack her stuff and leave because things had gotten so nasty. After Megan had finished telling me all of this, I couldn't help but chuckle. It wasn't because I found it humorous. Rather, it was because of the utter irony of the situation. The fact that her mother had been protecting Cassie and taking her side for a number of months finally came back to bite her. She really did kick her out, I wondered, still trying to make sense of what had just happened. Yes, Megan confirmed. For the time being, Cassie is staying with a friend. Nevertheless, it would not be surprising to see her return in a few weeks. It seemed as though karma was at work in this entire event. After everything was said and done, their poisonous behavior shifted inward, and they ended up taking it out on each other. To tell you the truth, I wished I could say that I felt sorry for any of them, but I truly did not. It felt like poetic justice after everything that they had put me through all of the time. For my part, I have finished dealing with each of them. Their phone numbers have been blocked, their social media accounts have been muted, and I have made it quite obvious to the rest of the family that I am not interested in remaining informed about their most recent activities. The fact that Ryan and I are concentrating on beginning this new phase of our life together is something that I couldn't be more thrilled about.